Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have a question you'd like to ask me, you can submit it anonymously at www.asksean.org. In this recent interview, I explore questions around kind of this idea of kind of a fantasy. And we can use the word fantasy in positive and negative ways. But here I'm kind of exploring the idea of sort of the fantasy that we all have secretly, if not consciously, that we're going to find a perfect partner who kind of in a sense is going to rescue us from our life. And this is something that both men and women engage in, though obviously it takes different forms, typically in our culture for each gender. So I'm exploring kind of the ways in which we have to learn how to let that fantasy die in order that we could actually have real relationship with whoever it is we're with. Or if we're not in relationship, we kind of need to grapple with, kind of this fantasy. Because really to be able to have a full relationship, to be able to show up actually as a partner, we have to learn how to take more responsibility for ourselves and our own emotional states and what's going on with us, and take responsibility for our own growth and healing. Which doesn't mean we don't need help, right? Because we do, we can't do life alone. And by that, I don't mean we have to be in relationship, but I mean we have to be in community, and we need guides and we need counselors and mentors and whatnot. So this is kind of in this interview segment, exploring and kind of, offering kind of some invitations and challenges around, how we can move towards kind of, I think, more vibrant, more healthy relationships. Yeah, so that's a good question. So kind of advice for young couples, and just kind of, finding their way and how do we get off on a good foot? How do we set ourselves on a good course in terms of, trying to not totally kill each other and, eventually growing into loving each other in a true way and not just the initial fantasy way. I think that I think one of the things is we have to be willing to, it's like a lot of different thoughts kind of colliding, but I guess one is that we have to be willing to do the counterintuitive thing of letting the fantasy of the relationship die. That's kind of a very provocative way of putting it. Because our initial attraction is going to be built around the ways that with again, it doesn't matter how much therapy you've had, we're all prone to this because, part of that falling in love thing is on an unconscious level, this is going to be the answer. It's going to rescue me from something, whatever I have not finished with. And then hopefully fairly quickly, we start to be confronted with, kind of irrefutably that oh wait, this isn't the answer. And that's sort of that's kind of what we think of as the honeymoon period ending, is that we start to realize ooh, this person is human in ways that I just couldn't let myself see before. And so at that moment, okay, now real relationship starts to actually become possible. This is the irony, right? It's there's these mysterious forces in us that draw us together. And if we can sort of survive the elevation of that and the crash of that, then now we actually start to have a chance to build something for real. All of that's fun. I don't want to be too pejorative about it, but I am wanting to really kind of pop the bubble of just because of our cultural moment. It's in all our movies. Pick a Disney movie. The prince or princess is gonna solve all my stuff for me. That's the felt message. We have it in our bones, and we just know it's true. even though it's not. And then we're so confused as to why person after person lets us down. It's like, well, the whole paradigm is going to let us down. Like, of course they're going to let us down, and we're letting them down. How are we going to show up in the midst of that? And what is that? What are the particulars of that inviting us to know about ourselves? So that might be, if I was to kind of have, one question, for in terms of advice for young couples is to keep asking yourself, what is this discomfort? What is this conflict? What is this irritation with my partner? This fear about my partner? This shame? Whatever. What is this trying to teach me about me and my background and my woundedness and places in me that need healing? Now this is hard because, sometimes there can be, there definitely can be, there are all sorts of different difficult dynamics that can happen between partners, and it's easy for us to kind of get into this well, I don't want to have to examine that. That's not fair, and because they're whatever wronging me in this way or that way, and they may be, they may be being all sorts of jerky. I'm not letting the other person off the hook here, but we can't change them. We really can't. I mean, I've tried in the past. And I'm a therapist, right? I know how to get in people's heads, in theory, do all the Jedi mind tricks or something, supposedly. But you can't change another person. I mean, even in my work as a clinician, I don't change people. I show up as a real human being and I walk with them and helping them learn how to change themselves. Do I play a significant role in that? Well, sure. But I'm not changing them. It's not like they're coming in and I'm like a mechanic of I'm just going to do all these things and there's some passive participant, no, we're figuring this out together, how to craft a new story for your life that you can actually live, that you have the emotional muscles to live and make your own. And so it's we can't change other people. We surely can't change our partners, or friends, or family members, or kids, or parents, or bosses, or employees, or whatever. All that we really can change is ourselves. And so, even though, maybe it's not fair, we've all been dealt raw hands in some way or another, and so it's I don't want to have to work on this, and they're I shouldn't have to. Well, maybe, but your options are, you can double down on that and say, well, I'm just not going to work on it, and then your life will continue to be whatever form of hell you've been living in, and we're powerful enough that we can live that the rest of our lives. That's an amazing, sobering thing. I can craft a very, ugly hell for myself, and I could keep that in place my entire life. And lots of people do that. Or I can grapple with maybe it's not fair, but do I want my life to be better or not? Do I want, do I long for a better story for myself than the one that I'm living in? What is this trying to teach me, about my journey, about what's needing healing in me? Because the thing is, I can't, whatever needs to be addressed with my partner, I can't address with them healthily if I'm not addressing myself first. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's fair or not, this is just the way it is. I gotta sort out, what is actually going on with me, what am I needing from me, so that I can start to develop some grounding, so I can start to develop some capacity to be able to then come to them and be look, this really hurts when you do this, and this is some of why, out of my background, and it would really help if you could do this differently. And then, over a series of conversations, when it's, maybe this is becoming a significant impasse, it's okay, I've got to do something different here. This particular behavior, I'm not able to, be in connection with you around that. So when you do that, I'm going to need to leave. Not out of spite, not out of punishment, not out of running, but out of, this is what I'm coming to believe I need to do in terms of responsibility to myself. And you can feel there, energetically, those distinctions are so important, right? Because it's really easy to do that kind of thing, or any other number of things, out of spite, out of trying to punish, out of trying to coerce, we all love that, because it keeps us from our pain, and we can just keep abandoning ourselves like we seem to all like to do. but that's hurts ourselves, and it's not making for connection. And so like, but if I can start to take ownership of like, what do I need to be doing for me, then I can actually start to be a redemptive presence with my partner. I can actually create the opportunity for connection. Of like, look, I really want to be connected to you, but this particular pattern is not workable for me. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong about, morality or whatever there. I just have to be clear on, I'm not able to be with you in that way right now. Maybe maybe it's something where like 5 years from now I'm healthier and like that no longer, is no longer problematic for me. Or maybe it's something that I always be like, no, I just, that doesn't work with me in terms of my worldview, my ethics, whatever, So it's like, we don't have to figure all that out. We just have to be clear on like, it doesn't feel right for me, and I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to be trying to coerce you or any of these kinds of things. I'm just going to be attending to like, what do I need to be doing for my own soul? And inviting like, look, if you can sort that out and do that differently, we can have connection there. And I want to have connection with you in other places as much as we can. And so it's like that's a very different kind of relationship dynamic, right? Than where we all start out, which is like, oh, you're so amazing, and in the subtitles, you're gonna rescue me from myself. Like, the internal unconscious monologue, like, that's a very different, like what I've been describing is a very different posture where we're actually showing up as partners, as true equals, like saying, hey, let's learn to walk together. Like, you're like a terrible, wonderful person. I really like spending time with you and hate you sometimes. Like, it's like, let's do more life together and like keep muddling along, trying to like learn how to be better humans, and how to actually love each other. And like that can be a kind of love and a kind of connection that really we deeply long for, but like in some ways I think we so seldom see in our movies, because it's like it's so much more nuanced, it's so much more messy. Like there's like colors we don't know how to paint, right? That don't lend themselves as well to like the succinctness of of a film, and sort of the cleanness of like, and then they lived happily ever after, which we know is not true. So, but this is something in some ways, this would be like the more true ending would be, and then they became more real humans who learned how to really love themselves and each other. And when it was hard, and it was beautiful, and hard and beautiful. And that, I think deep down we sense that actually is more true. And thank goodness, because none of us has achieved the happily ever after, and so goodness, like, to set our vision on something that's actually achievable is like way more encouraging than like the chasing of this thing that like, why can't I get to this? It's like, well, yeah, because it's like, it's just a little story that's, is a caricature that's not remotely representative of how life works.